Who better than Derek, Pat, Andrew, the wrestling crew? Man, they bout to put an end to y'all careers like a finishing move. They bout to give y'all facts on these cats that's fighting on these mats. Y'all can't see them like John Cena. Even if y'all had 20/20 vision, y'all better listen, pay attention, and take notes down and realize that it's not your time now. And watch these three kings take the crown. Hey, hey.
You're listening to Wrestling IQ 101. This is the big old badass Danny Mom. What happened to the infamous tag team Spitting Squad?
Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Wrestling IQ 101. I'm Andrew alongside Pat and Derek.
Hey!
And you can follow us at WrestlingIQ101.com, also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And today, we are sitting with the Master of Chaos, Kevin Knight. How's everything going, man?
Everything is going well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
So, Kevin, you were in charge of the IWF. You were running for 20 plus years. Earlier this summer, you had your last show. Can you just talk about that show a little bit and what went into it?
Yeah, the final week of June, we wrapped up things after 20 years. So we finished the final week with 3 big live events. We had our 700th live event and Hall of Fame induction ceremony on June 24th. And then we continue with 2 more events on June 28th and 29th. We inducted some more wrestlers and longtime managers into our Hall of Fame. And the events were amazing. We had great crowds at all 3 cards. We had amazing matches. It was very emotional, but it was time to go after 20 years. A lot goes into it, and it takes a lot of time and effort to put things together on a full-time basis, because in addition to doing live events every week, we also had the wrestling school operating full-time as well.
Nice. So, can you kind of tell us, why did you decide, to finally, close down IWF?
It was really just a decision. I woke up one morning a few months prior, and I was just like, you know what? It's time to wrap this up. Because I myself was still wrestling on a full-time basis, in addition to conducting our live events, doing the wrestling school. So we had training classes 4 days a week. We had a live event every Saturday night. We did kids' birthday party, private events every week also, in addition to our youth training program. And it was just 24/7, 365 for basically the past 18 years that the wrestling school has been in existence. The wrestling school opened at the end of 1999. We started as an organization doing live events at the beginning of 1998. So the wrestling school has been going for just about 18 years, and it was just something that I didn't want to do 24/7, 365 anymore. But that's the kind of effort that's required to make it run correctly and safe and successful, and I just didn't want to put in that amount of time anymore. So I said, thought to myself, if I wasn't willing to give 115% anymore, that I just didn't want to do it at all. So instead of doing things half-assed, I'm like, you know what? We've had over 700 events. Had a lot of wrestlers and managers and backstage crew get tryouts with the WWE. Many went on to work for them full time. So 20 years, over 700 events. Those are 2 nice round numbers. So it was time to go.
So, Kevin, what were some of your favorite memories about IWF?
Favorite memories would probably be any of the live events where we had some of the WWE Hall of Famers and legends wrestle on our cards. And then also when we would have the Hall of Famers and legends in to do special weekend training camps at IWF Wrestling School. And we've had some great guys in, including Honky Tonk Man, Tito Santana, Dr. Tom Pritchard, Bushwhacker Luke, Stevie Richards, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Young Stallion Jim Powers. We had John Bradshaw Layfield conduct a seminar once. So anytime we'd have the Hall of Famers and Legends in to teach our students and graduates the nuts and bolts and ins and outs of professional wrestling, and then when they would wrestle on our live events, those were always great moments.
So, talk about a little bit the evolution of IWF, kind of how you started traveling from school to West Patterson, to the relocation in Nutley and in that big facility, and just talk about the growth and evolution and the change going from each location and stage of the promotion.
Sure. I started wrestling in 1996, and it was basically by accident. I started off as a ring announcer because I was doing radio and television in college. And then while I was in college, I was also working full-time at a professional radio station in North Jersey. So in wrestling, I started out as a ring announcer and kind of got talked into doing a one-time only match where I was the morning show sports guy from the radio station taking on one of the wrestlers. His name was Rick Ratchet, and he was actually the person that suggested I give wrestling a try. He said I was too tall to be a ring announcer. Did I ever think about giving this a shot? So there we were. A couple of weeks later, I'm in the ring, and just kind of went from there. I enjoyed doing it. I pursued it, and a lot of the places I went to for training, the schools, I mean, you would use the term wrestling school very loosely because the places would either be dirty or there was no instruction, or what instruction did exist didn't make sense. And I really didn't learn anything. So most of my training and my learning was on the fly, getting in with some of the established guys before the doors would open, practicing in the ring, learning the ring psychology, learning how to perform, learning how to put together a persona. And after about 3.5 years, I'm like, you know what? I want to continue to learn, and there was really nowhere to go. So IWF Wrestling School opened at the end of 1999 in West Patterson, New Jersey. They've since changed the name to Woodland Park, New Jersey. And I basically opened the school just so I could continue to learn. I didn't necessarily open the school because I wanted to teach. I wanted to continue to learn how to be a better wrestler, also how every aspect of wrestling works, from ring announcing to doing commentary to being a manager to the business end, merchandise, promotion, marketing. So right after we opened, we brought in the Hall of Famers and Legends to conduct classes for us and hold training camps, seminars, and that was where I also learned not only how to be a better wrestler, but also how to be a teacher. So I just opened the school so that I could learn as much as possible, and we were in West Patterson for 12 or 13 years, and then made the move to Nutley, to a bigger facility, and we were there for 3.5 years, and that just wrapped up 2 months ago. So moving from one facility to the next, it was needed because the venue that we had in Nutley was probably twice as big as our previous location, and they're both similar, just the Nutley venue was a little bit bigger, and we had video classroom in there, weight room, supplements, merchandise store, anything that you needed to learn from a behind-the-scenes wrestling standpoint, as well as whatever we needed to offer as a live event venue. We had it all.
Nice. So can you kind of go like into just a little bit more detail on kind of like how you got started and, you know, your training and your experiences with that as well?
It was very strange where, again, I was going to college, working at the college radio and TV station, but also working professionally at a radio station in North Jersey. I was the morning show co-host and also did the sports update. So I was getting up every morning at 4:30 in the morning to be on the air out of Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, from 6 until 10 a.m. in the morning. Then I'd go to classes at William Patterson University after that, and then I'd continue to volunteer and work at the college radio and TV station. When the local wrestling shows, so in this case it was a National Wrestling Alliance event, came to New Jersey, they would give the radio station I was working at tickets to give away over the air. They had me as the morning show co-host come down and host the event. So I got in the ring as the ring announcer, hyped up the audience, got the crowd ready for that, you know, the wrestling action that was about to take place. And one of the wrestlers, Mr. Showmanship Rick Ratchet, introduced himself to me in the locker room after the event. Thought I did a good job as the ring announcer and asked if I ever thought about pursuing this. And I said, sure, I'd love to be a ring announcer. He goes, no, you're too tall to be a ring announcer. You should be a wrestler. So then I just started training with him for a couple weeks, and the radio station happened to co-sponsor a wrestling event that was taking place in my hometown. They wanted me to wrestle, you know, do the thing where I was the local sports guy, and I got called into action to defend my hometown and defend the radio station. So I was going to wrestle Rick Ratchet in a match. I did, and I basically started wrestling almost every weekend since that time and just trained on the fly. He showed me, you know, the ins and outs of what to do in and out of the ring. And then just, you know, when I felt my learning kind of hit a wall after 3.5 years, I just wanted to have my own facility and training school so that I could continue to learn. And, you know, the only way to learn is to be in the ring and learn from people that are far more experienced and have been doing it a lot longer. And that's why we brought in the Hall of Famers and legends that I had met and became friends with during my first 3.5 years of wrestling. They came in and did the training classes for us right away, so that's where I continued to learn. And wrestling is a art form and, you know, athletic craft that takes many years to learn how to do correctly. It's something that you really never fully learn how to do, because every wrestling practice that you attend or every match that you have, you're going to learn something new. So the learning really never ends, and that's why we have the Hall of Famers and legends to come in and teach the classes, to pass along their knowledge and experience to myself and all the students.
Yeah. So Kevin, what are some of the things that that you do miss or don't miss about, you know, the IWF, running it day to day?
I actually don't miss anything. It's very strange. Our last event, we haven't. It's almost been 2 months since we finished up, and I figured, well, maybe after the first month or after the second month that I would start to miss it. I could honestly say I just don't miss anything about it, which is good, because I know I made the right decision. And sometimes it's just kind of hard to top what you've done. We did it for 20 years. We had over 700 live events, which is a lot. We had 702 events. We've had 44 of our graduates go on to work at some point for WWE. So 44 wrestlers either got tryouts or were used as extras in TV commercials or used as extras at TV tapings to do practice sessions with some of their wrestlers at their headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. So having 44 of our graduates get paid work with WWE, which then led to 11 of them getting full-time employment, whether it's wrestlers like Darren Young, referees like Sean Bennett and Danilo Anzivio, who are referees there now, to countless others that have been signed. And then, included in that 11 are some guys that work behind the scenes in the TV production department, some work behind the scenes in creative services, and, kind of accomplished all the goals that were set out to accomplish. I really didn't want to physically wrestle anymore, and everything is in, great health. There are some aches and pains. Knees are pretty good. The back is pretty good. Shoulders are good. The neck is in good shape. You know what? While I'm still in good health, let's not push it any further. So I just figured that this was a good time, right when we hit our 20th year. That's when I kind of knew, all right, we're in our 20th year. This is going to be the last one. So I knew for probably about 6 months or 8 months before we actually finished up that this was going to be, the last year. So here we are tonight talking with you guys.
So, when these guys get signed, like a Darren Young, do you guys do anything for them at their last show? Do you have a party or like a ceremony or like a last hurrah or does anything go on either behind the scenes or at the show for these guys as a send off?
A few guys we did. I think at that point Darren Young had actually, I don't know if he had moved to at the time when he got picked up. Wow, this is a long time ago. So he got picked up, I think, at the beginning of 2009. I don't know if he had moved down to Florida at that point, because I know he attended some tryouts that they were doing at the FCW school in Tampa before they moved to Orlando and did NXT. Or do I have that reversed? Was FCW FCW was Tampa, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So it was before FCW then became NXT. So I think he may have already moved down there then. I don't remember. But a couple of the more recent guys like Real Deal Flex Freeman and Fadi the Arabian Bull, both who at the time that they were signed, Fadi the Arabian Bull in 2010 and then Real Deal Flex Freeman in 2011, they were both the IWF Heavyweight Champion at the time that they were signed, and WWE actually let them finish out, their dates that they had with us before they had to go and move to Florida to begin training down there. So we did have send-offs for them, but they had work to do. So it was we had nice events. Their family and friends came to say goodbye to them, and then that was it. I think both of them. And then the next day, they were packing up everything and moving down to Tampa to pursue their next life and training and working with WWE. So it was kind of quick goodbyes because they had work to accomplish starting the next day.
Yeah.
So with all this talent that you've helped train and produce, what can you say is it that you do differently or that you do in general that helps produce talent that goes on to the next level?
That's a good question. Probably to do things in a professional way. Because again, when I first started and I bounced around at a couple different places where they were doing wrestling training at the time, they just weren't professional. There was no structure. They weren't really doing things the right way. And I think it was right after the first year our school got going in West Patterson, New Jersey, we brought in Dr. Tom Pritchard, who was the head coach and head of developmental training for WWE at the time. And we implemented his training program as far as our curriculum and what we were doing at IWF Wrestling School. So since 2001, we trained our guys the same way that the WWE training system did up through present times, where Dr. Tom Pritchard was the in charge of WWE developmental for, I think, 15 or 16 years. And then after Dr. Tom, a couple of our wrestlers then that went on to train in NXT, we followed their training program, and they would pass along notes to us and some of the drills and some of the things that they were training at NXT. So we basically did the same program that the WWE was using to train their wrestlers and further their skills in Florida. So this way, when an opportunity would come up for one of our better graduates or one of our top prospects to get scouted or go for a tryout with WWE, they knew the system, they knew the drills, they knew what would be asked of them. They were already in shape. They already had proper cardiovascular conditioning. So it made it easy for a lot of, I don't want to say easy, but it made it a little bit easier for our guys to either get noticed, get tryouts, and then eventually get signed because they were accustomed to the way that the WWE trained their wrestlers. And we never did any nonsense where any of our wrestlers ever went through a table or ever set themselves on fire or ever did anything stupid. Because if you do that stupid stuff and you damage a knee, damage a back, damage a neck at the independent level, doing something stupid in front of 25 people, then you're of no value to an organization like the WWE that may want to take a look at you if you've done stuff, to damage your body at the independent level. So that was one thing we did, is we stayed away from doing the stupid moronic stuff where none of our wrestlers ever jumped off a balcony, for no reason. Let's leave that to stuntmen in Hollywood. Let them do that. They're professionals that know what they're doing. Where you see a lot of time in independent wrestlers, their bodies are beaten up and their bodies are destroyed, and they never get a chance to go to the WWE. Or you see guys landing on their necks because people don't know how to execute safe moves in the ring. And there's no need to do anything dangerous where there's a risk of injuring yourself or somebody else. That's the difference in being a professional wrestler. Professional. You're not supposed to come out of the ring crippled, and you're not supposed to cripple your opponent. That's part of being professionals. That's one thing that we always instilled in our wrestlers and students since day one.
Yeah. Kevin, when you got in the ring later in the years and stuff like that, did you ever think that you would become a role model to children and give back to the community like you have?
It is pretty cool to get some of the accolades and community awards that we've gotten over the past few years, but that was something I was involved in doing community outreach before I even got into wrestling, where when I was in high school, I always got involved in community activities, even through our local church. I mean, not that I was a practicing member of the church where I would go to masses every week. I'd attend church occasionally, but I was heavily involved in the church youth group where we did a lot of community activities and food drives, clothing drives, you name it, we did it, and it was something I always enjoyed and felt rewarding, was giving back to the community and people in need. And I carried that from high school to then in college and working with the radio station. We did a lot of community outreach, and then once I got involved in wrestling, I still, it felt natural to continue to do food drives and clothing drives, and we would do autograph sessions at Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and I would speak at their programs, and we would do summer reading awareness at some local libraries in New Jersey, and it was just cool to do. And because I remember when I was a kid in grammar school or in middle school, when people would come in, whether it be a local athlete or a fireman or a policeman or local author would come in and speak to us. I always enjoyed that and thought that was pretty cool that they gave their time to, us students learning and impressionable and teaching us good lessons. So that was something that I always wanted to do and give back, and a lot of our wrestlers got on board with it. Darren Young also too. He was involved in our community outreach program from day one when he first joined IWF Wrestling School in 2002. He would go with me. We'd speak at schools. We'd do autograph signings, different community events, and that's something that day one when he joined the WWE, and he's been doing for the past 8 or 9 years with them. A lot of community outreach and giving back and raising awareness for a number of different causes. And I think it's something that anybody that has a little bit of notoriety or a little bit of local celebrity or local fame should do is, give back to your community.
Yeah, and I mean that's another thing that's done I would say the WWE way that you guys do, because WWE is big on the community outreach as well.
Sure, it's very important.
But I just wanted to get your thoughts on another student of yours, and that's Eddie Kingston and Chikara, and if you had given him any advice as he was kind of building that brand.
Man, I know it's crazy to think, but I don't really pay attention to too much other wrestling. Again, with doing IWF live events every week and private birthday party events, and then doing our wrestling training. Even with our guys in WWE, it's so hard for me to follow a lot of Darren Young matches or the matches that Sean Bennett or Danilo Amphibio are refereeing, and then even with some of the other guys, like you mentioned, Chikara and some of our guys that have done stuff in Ring of Honor, it's almost like, when I left an IWF event or I left IWF Wrestling School facility, the last thing I want to do is go home and watch more wrestling, even if it is our graduates club, be like, the guy that works all day, whatever his job is. If guy works in a pizzeria making pizzas for 8 to 10 hours a day, the last thing he's going to want to do at the end of the day, when he goes home, the last thing he's going to want to do is have pizza for dinner. So it'd be like, when I left, that was it. Even if our guys are up in Raw or SmackDown, I'd be like, I just been around it so long. But some of our guys, I've caught up with some of their stuff on YouTube that they're doing, and that's something that, hopefully now that I do have a little bit more free time, I'll be able to catch up with a lot of our guys that came through IWF Wrestling School and went to be successful on the independent wrestling scene or successful in NXT and in WWE. Hopefully I'll be able to track them down, catch up with some of the guys, say hi to them, and have an opportunity to watch some more of their matches.
Nice. Now, you've had matches with, legends from, Larry Zbyszko to Honky Tonk Man, Bob Backlund. I'll ask a two-part question. What's your most memorable match, and who is your favorite opponent that you've wrestled as well?
Well, most memorable match, it wasn't that long, but I'd say it was probably against A-Train, who of course is now the head of NXT training, Matt Bloom. It was probably my match against him that took place at a SmackDown taping for WWE at Madison Square Garden back in 2003. Match was only about 5 or 6 minutes. He basically, controlled most of the match. But that was probably most memorable because it was, for SmackDown at a WWE TV taping in Madison Square Garden. Anytime I was very lucky enough and privileged enough to get in the ring with some of the legends, it was always very memorable. Probably, my favorite legend to wrestle, Tito Santana, Hall of Famer, obviously great. I got to wrestle with him again. I got to wrestle against him numerous times, and then more recently I got to team up with him at a couple different events also. So Tito was always great to wrestle. Like you mentioned, Larry Zbyszko, Bob Backlund, anytime you get in the ring with, those guys that have that Hall of Fame status, it would always be pretty cool, and it always made me think back to the times when my father would bring me to the Meadowlands Arena to watch wrestling. Never did I ever think that I would grow up and be in the same ring and wrestling against these guys, and then some of them then were guest instructors at IWF Wrestling School. So crazy to think back then when I was, sitting in the crowd watching these guys, that I get to work with them one day and then have them, be instructors for us. So it's hard to pick just one, but any time in the ring with a legend or Hall of Famer, it was always great.
You did some stuff for the MSG network. You were talking about some WWE past memories and stuff like that. How important was the Garden to you growing up in Jersey?
The Garden, I went to a couple events growing up at Madison Square Garden, and it was always cool in the Garden. The vibe was maybe a little bit more electric. Maybe the crowd was a little bit rowdier, but the events at the Meadowlands Arena were probably more special to me because it was, from where I lived as a kid, the Meadowlands Arena was about 8 minutes from home at the time, and they had events there every month. At one point, they had events there every 2 weeks where, the WWF would be there every month. Then you would have either the NWA or the AWA, or sometimes they would do combined cards with the NWA and the AWA teaming up with Memphis Wrestling, and they would do huge events called Pro Wrestling USA. So there was a time where almost every 2 weeks live wrestling would be at the Meadowlands in East Rutherford, New Jersey. It then went on to be called the Izod Center, and now it's closed. It's been closed for about the past 2.5 years. Who knows what they're going to do with the building. But the Meadowlands was probably more special to me than Madison Square Garden. But as a kid growing up, a lot of the matches are on YouTube. They would also host monthly events at Madison Square Garden, and I'd watch those from home on the MSG network, and was lucky enough to get to wrestle there in 2003 against A-Train at a SmackDown taping. So that was pretty cool.
And one thing that stands out to me about IWF is how they're such a noticeable brand. They're always, whether it's ESPN, channel, like the local news, they'll be on every newspaper, every local newspaper that's around. They're in the public eye constantly. So, and it's a brand you can recognize. So what is the secret to always being in the public eye and building a brand?
Don't cater to the internet. That's a great question. I think in all the interviews I've done, nobody's ever asked that question. So that's credit to you guys. That's a great question. A lot of these, and again, now that I'm no longer wrestling or involved in wrestling, I can, be a little bit more opinionated on things, or maybe give some people some tips out there that maybe they, wouldn't understand the viewpoint I was coming from. But I just don't get these independent organizations that go crazy promoting their events on the internet, where you need to promote what you're doing in your local community. What do I care if our event is highly publicized on the internet, and I want, internet websites, and I want internet wrestling journalists to write about our event that's taking place in North Jersey? What do I care if somebody in Arizona or somebody in Seattle, Washington knows about our event? I need our event covered in local newspapers, local TV stations. We need local publicity, and that's probably what of independent wrestling organizations go wrong is that they think that if they're talked about on the internet that they're a big deal, but it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, because you need, local people to buy tickets and show up at your event. And I think that's what a lot of wrestling does wrong now, is that they cater to the internet. And we wanted families coming to our events. We wanted the casual fans. We wanted to cater to a different audience. There's a huge audience out there that are wrestling fans that don't watch current wrestling. They're not watching the WWE because, again, what the WWE does now is great, but it's not professional wrestling. They do sports entertainment. Whatever other major leagues are left, I don't know if, the WWE really is the only major league full-time wrestling organization in existence now. But people want alternatives, and I was always a professional wrestling fan. And there's a lot of people like me that don't like the gymnastic style of today's wrestling. So we always tried to cater to people that like professional wrestling, families, adults that don't watch today's product. And to find those people, you have to go through the local newspapers, local TV stations, and get the word out to the mainstream audience. And I think that's what a lot of independent wrestling organizations are missing. They think that by posting a video of some moron wrestler jumping off a balcony in front of, 46 fans, and he's probably getting paid $5, to do something stupid that isn't ever going to get him anywhere. Local newspapers, local TV stations aren't going to cover that, idiot doing that stupid stunt. And to stay around for as long as we did, you need mainstream coverage in your local area. We were a local wrestling organization, like a local territory from days gone by, and that's what you need to exist. How many of these wrestling organizations pop up? They're around for 2 years. They do 3 shows. They lose thousands and thousands of dollars because, they're trying to get some wrestling journalist from 3,000 miles away to talk about his event. That's not the way to do it. And you're not going to get news coverage if your event doesn't look first class, if you don't have proper lighting, if you don't have people that are professional and present themselves in a professional manner to want to be interviewed by local journalists or local sportscasters or appear on the news or be in the newspaper. They're not going to want to interview some toothless gimp that only has use of one limb because he was, half paralyzed doing stupid stuff at an independent wrestling show. So
yeah,
that was always my philosophy.
That's a great point. You gotta sell to your market,
Sure.
You Taco Bell isn't gonna sell burgers. Burger King sells burgers, if you wanted taco, you're gonna go to Taco Bell. You're not gonna go to Burger King for a taco,
And I see it, again, I don't seek out and watch wrestling, but, in social media, on your news feed, you see different videos that pop up, and, whenever I see this stuff, 95% of the time, it's some idiot doing some stupid move where he's at risk of breaking his neck or at risk of breaking his opponent's neck, in the hopes of getting noticed. Well, you know what? You're an idiot, because the art of professional wrestling is to do this without injuring yourself or injuring another opponent. And even some of the guys, and again, I get that sometimes you want to take a risk in the hope of getting noticed, but you would even have some guys, some great wrestlers in the WWE that had to retire early because of risks they took in the ring that shortened their career. You have guys like Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
You have guys like CM Punk, and you have guys like Edge that took, in my opinion, unnecessary risks to try and get noticed. came for their big break, they were too hurt and too banged up and had too many injuries from early on in their career. And when the time came when the spotlight was on them, here it is. They've worked their entire life for this moment. All three had to walk away from wrestling way too soon because, again, in my opinion, they did crazy stuff early on in their career and caught up with them. And it's funny, you mentioned, we talked earlier about some of the legends and Hall of Famers. I'll never forget this. I think it was 2001, Honky Tonk Man, who is one of the greatest wrestling instructors that I've ever met. I mean, all the guys, all the Hall of Famers and legends that we had do classes for us, they were all great. They all had, great stuff to offer. Honky Tonk Man, his instruction was everything you need to know outside of the ring. Honky Tonk Man was not getting us in the ring, showing us how to do snapmares and hip tosses and arm drags. He was teaching us about the business. And the best advice that he gave us, and I'll never forget it, in 2001 at his first seminar, he said to myself and all the students, don't leave this business in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when he said that. He said, if you leave this business in a wheelchair, you're an idiot. Again, he was the one that said the art of professional wrestling, even in, a guy that everybody respects, Bret Hart, I'll never forget it in his book. I got that line from him. I want to, give him the proper credit. He said the art of professional wrestling is to do this convincingly and not injure yourself or your opponent. That again, accidents are going to happen. You're going to twist a knee, twist an ankle, sprain a shoulder. You're going to get a black eye. You're going to get a busted nose. It's going to happen. Just by doing this correctly, you're going to get beaten up and banged up. But to get hurt doing stupid stuff, or if you injure somebody else trying to do some risky maneuver, it's not worth it. You don't want to shorten careers. And, again, after I was doing this for 20 years, that advice that Honky Tonk Man gave me in 2001 always stuck with me. And I'm like, you know what? I've really had no major injuries in wrestling. I mean, I've sprained everything there is to sprain. I've bruised everything there is to bruise. Broken thumbs, broken fingers, broken nose, but nothing that really caused me to miss that much time. I'm like, you know what? It's time to step away from this and do some other things that I've always wanted to do but never had a chance to pursue because I was always so busy in wrestling. And a lot of these guys, Mick Foley's in bad shape.
Yeah, you can't even walk up the ramp. You can't even walk up the ramp.
No, that's not good. And Mick Foley's relative. What's Mick Foley? 50, 52, 53 of them. I'm not sure of his age, but
probably around there.
I didn't want to be that. And at the time when these guys were doing this, when Edge was jumping off the 40-foot ladder through 12 tables in triple threat tag matches, I'm sure at the time it was great. I'm sure at the time the paycheck was great. But I'm sure now with his neck fused that he can't do anything physical. I'm sure deep down he's, saying to himself, gee, I wish I wasn't doing that because if I didn't do that, I'd still be wrestling today. So
yeah.
So if you had one more match and who would be your dream opponent?
I'm sorry, I missed that. What was that question?
If you had to get in the ring one more time, who would be your dream opponent to take on?
Wow, I would say growing up, some of my favorites. I loved watching. As much as I loved watching the WWF and Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper and those guys, Macho Man Randy Savage, I also loved watching the NWA. And I'd have to say, any one of the members of the Horsemen, whether it was Ric Flair or Barry Windham or Tully Blanchard or Arn Anderson, they would have been dream opponents for for me because I just love their style. I love the way they wrestled in the ring, and it would be one of those four. I never got to wrestle again. You know, I've been so lucky to wrestle many legends and Hall of Famers, but there are four that I never got a chance to wrestle with. So they would be. Can't pick just one. It has to be those four.
It's not bad picks at all. So now that you've done 20 years, it's all in the books. What do you think you will be remembered for, or should I say, what do you hope that you will be remembered for?
Just that, we produce a lot of great wrestling events. We did a lot of good in the community across New Jersey, and that, we provided a great start and a great training ground for our wrestlers that either got a tryout with the WWE or got to work with the WWE in some capacity, or even our guys that were signed and got full-time employment with the WWE. We just had two of our wrestlers get tryouts the 4 days that the WWE was in Brooklyn for SummerSlam weekend. NXT on Saturday. Sunday was SummerSlam. Monday was Raw. And Tuesday was SmackDown. And First Class Justin Adams, the IWF American Champion, and Southside Slugger Tony Graves, former IWF Tag Team Champion, were there for 4 days working with the WWE and getting tryouts. And Tony Graves was a member of the medical staff with Brock Lesnar at the end of the SummerSlam match. So, and then the Atkins brothers, Brian and Robert, who are the IWF Tag Team Champions, they have tryouts coming up with the WWE in the fall. I'm not sure what cities it's going to be at, but they're going to go in, I believe, October or November. So hopefully that's what we are remembered for. Not everybody gets a chance to get a tryout with the WWE or to get to work with them as an extra at a TV taping to get to do something cool. So it's not bad that we've had 44 guys and girls get a chance to do that. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you were also part of a big moment in IWF history when Chris Steeler had won the belt off of you. He became the Grand Slam winner. He won every belt. Can you just talk about that moment a little bit?
Yeah, he was the first wrestler to have won the IWF Junior Heavyweight Championship, then the Tag Team Championship, then the IWF American title, and then he became the IWF Heavyweight Champion. And I think that was in 2009. He became the IWF Heavyweight Champion, and that was heck of an accomplishment to be able to win all four of those major championships in the IWF. When he started the IWF, he was pretty young. I think he was 18 or 19 years old when he started. He came a long way during the time that he was with the IWF.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if anybody else became a Grand Slam champion having won all four. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know a lot of people won 3 out of the 4, but I'll have to double check that.
You also had a unique opportunity of training with Angelina from the Jersey Shore. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, she was, at the time, I think she had just left the Jersey Shore TV show that aired on MTV. Of course, that's Angelina Pivernak. And she was looking to break into professional wrestling. I don't know if she was seriously looking to get into professional wrestling or just using it as a publicity stunt to get some media attention. I don't know. But she came up to IWF Wrestling School and trained with us for a few weeks in I think it was the beginning of 2011. She was with us for a couple weeks, and then she appeared on Impact Wrestling
Yeah.
for a couple episodes. Yeah, so she went down to Impact Wrestling for a couple episodes after that, and then that was it. So she trained with us for a couple weeks, was maybe on 2 episodes of Impact, and that was it.
That was
so
it.
I guess she didn't want to pursue it seriously. So
Yeah. Speaking of,
TMZ came to cover it, so we were splashed on the TMZ website.
nice. That's good.
Publicity.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So, and as far as, interesting things you have also done, you also worked for JBL and Bruce Pritchard as a social media director and web store manager when the launch of Layfield energy drinks. Can you kind of tell us, about that experience as well?
Sure. I met JBL in 2003. Myself, Darren Young, Roman Zachary, Sean Donovan, we were involved in the filming of a WWE TV commercial to promote Survivor Series. So we were dressed up as XFL, well, not necessarily XFL football players, but we had to wear the old XFL uniforms that they had on hand and promote Survivor Series, which took place, obviously in November during football season. They did a football-themed commercial where they had some of the wrestlers like Kurt Angle, John Cena, Bradshaw Layfield, Ron Simmons, Hurricane Helms. They just had them destroy us out on the football field. And it was a memorable commercial that WWE did. So that was the first time I got to meet JBL. Stayed in touch with him over the years. I worked out with him a couple times at the WWE warehouse in Connecticut, where before they had their official developmental school, they had a ring set up in their TV warehouse, TV studio in Stamford, Connecticut, right near their headquarters. So I practiced with him there before a big pay-per-view match in 2005. Just stayed in touch with them, whenever we were used as extras at local TV tapings. We just developed a rapport. We emailed each other back and forth, and it was literally the day after he retired from wrestling the first time. I forget the year. I want to say 2009 at WrestleMania. But yeah, I think it was the WrestleMania he wrestled and lost to Rey Mysterio in like 20 seconds.
Yeah, 25, right?
I think there was WrestleMania 25, so this has to be 2009. It was literally that next day, that Monday, my phone rang. He gave me a call. He's like, do you have another job besides, wrestling and doing a wrestling school? And I said, no, I do this full time. He's like, do you want another job to go on top of it, but, you could do it on your own hours? I said, sure. So that proves that the cliche is true, that you never know when your phone's going to ring. And the next day, I met him in New York City for lunch, and he told me that he was launching his new energy drink, and Bruce Pritchard, the president of his company, JBL was the owner, and also Charlie Haas was involved. At the time, Charlie Haas had a supplement company out of Dallas, Texas, and we did it for a year. 1 year. So I was his web store manager. I got his social media started, and he gave it a shot for a year. And then there was so much competition at the time from 5-Hour Energy and all the other energy drinks, energy shots, that he eventually just sold the company because it was so costly to try and get that product on store shelves and placement in drugstores, places like CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Target. So it was almost like fighting a losing battle trying to launch an energy drink at that time, but they were really becoming popular, so he sold the company. But that was quite an experience to work with GBL and Bruce Pritchard for just over a year. And it made for some very long days because I was doing that, when I would get home from instructing class at the wrestling school.
Okay, so Kevin, I just want to close out on this, and I want to know, is rock and roll dead?
Wow, is rock and roll dead? I'm still a fan. I mean, I like a lot of the new rock that's out now. I mean, I like Five Finger Death Punch. I like Volbeat. I like 6 a.m. I like Avenged Sevenfold. I love a lot of the new rock.
Yeah.
It's hard to say if rock and roll is totally dead or not. I mean, the music business, as far as putting out new CDs or putting out new albums, is kind of dead, since everybody can get all the music for free online somehow just by downloading or whatever. But hey, I still like a lot of the new rock that's coming out now, so
Yeah.
it's still alive as far as I'm concerned. But you know, big picture, you know, I guess the rock and roll business is dying. But you know, a lot of those old groups, they're touring. I mean, whether it's Alice Cooper, Def Leppard, Deep Purple, REO Speedwagon, Styx, Journey, Fleetwood Mac, they're still touring. You know, the best way for them to continue to make money now is to do the live shows where, you know, the money that these artists made in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the mid-90s, the bulk of their revenue came from albums and putting out new music, but now they make most of their income through touring, so that's why a lot of these old acts are still on the road, which is great, because I love to go and see them whenever I get a chance.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, can you tell our fans, if they want to follow you on social media or connect with you, how can they follow you on social media?
Sure, that would be great. On Facebook and Twitter, it is at Kevin Knight NJ, and on Instagram and YouTube, we are at Wrestling IWF.
Nice. Awesome. Well, we thank you for your time. We thank you for, you know, answering all our questions and, you know, giving us this great interview as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
Anytime, guys. Anything for my New Jersey people. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And for us, we're Wrestling IQ 101. You guys can follow us on Instagram, Twitter at Wrestling IQ 101. Follow us at WrestlingIQ101.com. You can listen to this great interview, all of our other great interviews, and we are out. You have just listened to the Wrestling IQ 101 podcast, powered by B Plus Player Radio.